This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. Beth can hear them calling, but she won't pick up the phone.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a good time together because this week I am slowly sinking. There's something up with this chair. I already feel inferior as it is. Okay, there we go. Much better. We are going to have a good time together because we are talking with Colin, the lead singer of the Zombies. And I didn't even think about it, but what are we running on All Souls Day? That's right.
Zombies.
The Zombies.
Look at us.
Oh my goodness. It almost looks like we meant to do this.
Well, we did. It
We
just
did.
was deep in our psyche.
And I was looking forward to trying to go see them. Unfortunately, they have canceled or postponed the last few dates of their tour, but that doesn't make the new record any more less enjoyable.
No, it's outstanding.
It's really good, and it's something. It is not Oracle and Odyssey repeated 10 times in 2.5 minutes.
No, it's not.
Which is always nice.
Yes, I mean, although that's a great album. Why do I feel like we already had this conversation?
I don't think we did, because we would have said Colin's name, wouldn't we?
I don't know.
If nothing else, we have that. I feel like we did touch on the Oracle and Odyssey, but maybe we just went off on some tangent about something else.
That's probable.
Because
we talked about how Susanna Hoffs inducted them.
That's right. Yeah. No, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
I can
anymore.
talk about them all day, every day, so it's fine.
I feel like my ears are still ringing from Parliament.
Really?
That was the loudest show I've ever been to.
Was it really?
Like the floor was shaking. And then if it wasn't kind of at a level of loudness, anytime anyone was soloing, George would walk over and just hold the mic like in front of the trumpet, or walk over to the amp and hold it in front of the amp. You're like, oh, there we go. There it is.
Yeah.
And I always wear earplugs to shows because
you're smart.
But I got in the car afterwards and I'm like, my ears are ringing.
Yeah. That's always kind of a bummer.
Yeah. But they were great. They did everything you'd want to do.
Perfect.
And George, he's more of a conductor than anything at this point. Which I was okay with.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to see him conduct this band, because you hear that Parliament is sort of like Sun Ra or James Brown's band, where they rehearse into the ground. And multiple times during the show, you could see George would sit down for a while and then get up and start moving around, but would just like hold up 2 fingers, and you'd see the drummer and the bassist be like, all right, 2 measures later, stop hard on a dime.
Wow.
It was very impressive. And they did everything you would want to do.
That's good.
So you need a little Atomic Dog, you need a little
always
Roof Tearing.
Yes.
And then his, I believe, daughter did a cover of Jump Around, which was lovely.
Oh, all right.
So I don't know if my hearing will ever be the same, but
it'll come back.
I got, one of the originals.
It went for a worthy cause, right?
Yeah. And as they said, he also had sort of like a right-hand man, hype man, to kind of like come out. He'd sing a little bit, and then he would sort of like introduce members of the band and just sort of like keep everything moving smoothly. And early on, he said, if you came out here thinking you were going to see the crazy hair, you ain't getting that tonight. And then they just
not so much
went into another banger, but they all kind of just segued into another, where again he would just call it and they would all go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was lovely.
Good.
As much as something that, opened up with Get Off Your Ass. Yeah, opens with Get Off Your Ass and Jam. Is a lot, could be described as
that's
lovely.
Like words to live by.
It is, really. I don't even know where we should begin, because you've got the new record.
Yes.
You guys just got the rights back to all your older music. How long a fight was that?
Well, it was about 3 years. It was quite a drawn out affair. So it started off being, I think, quite hostile, but it ended up everyone reading from the same hymn sheet, so to speak. Um, yeah, I've never been involved in anything like that before, and I only saw it really from a distance. I wasn't personally involved in it, but it does get very complicated.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's all done now, and we have the rights back to um, all the masters from 64 to 67. Although records were
Wow.
released after that, nothing was recorded after that. I think it was the summer of 67 when the band finished.
That's just got to be. I mean, you look at someone like Taylor Swift, who is having the exact same thing, issues that people from your era are doing, and the fact that you were able to come to a solution to that, and the people who wrote and sang on those songs get what's deserved to them has got to be very comforting to know that that's all been cleared up.
Well, absolutely. It's been a long old haul, but it's fantastic that there's been a resolution. Um, it does sometimes intrigue me. I guess it still goes on now, but in the 60s, and I'm not particularly talking about these masters, actually, the people who had control of the masters from 64 to 67 have been really good to us. It's not, there's not sort of a good guy and a bad guy. It's just situations change over all this period of time. But I am intrigued by when I talk to people who started back in the 60s that how ruthless some of the managers and agents were in that time. And I do sincerely hope that things have changed over the years. I do wonder. I think that artists are more sophisticated now. They know more of what's going on in the music business than we did when we came in. We were 18 years old when we first started talking about becoming professional musicians. So, and we came from a small town, 30 miles north of London. What would we know? So it was quite a challenging time for us, but hopefully it's a bit better now. I really do hope so.
You would say it's a different game?
Oh,
You see?
Ooh,
Yeah.
just
I
went
see what
right
you're
there.
saying.
Yeah.
If I might just say, the
Please.
Zombies have just released an album in the last few months called Different Game. And so I appreciate that lead in
Yes.
to for us to plug our album. It's a really good, mostly written by Rod Argent. One song of mine on there. Great band, and it was fun recording it. We're playing, I think, 3 or 4 new songs from that album in our live set now. It's going down incredibly well. We've been really lucky that our new songs seem to match very well with songs that were written and recorded 50 and 60 years ago. And we get just as good a response on the new songs as we do to the classic hits.
And we were talking just before you came on that it sounds like the Zombies, but it is not a carbon copy of what you guys did then.
No.
It's sort of a, let's take this. Were you at all worried when you guys went back out on the road? Like, are we going to sound like ourselves? Do people want to hear She's Not There done exactly like it is on the record? Or have you been surprised by the fans' reception?
Well, if I could just say that when Rod and I first got back together again in 1999, Rod was adamant he didn't want to use the name Zombies. We didn't even use it for about 7 years. We were quite surprised. I think we were going to we probably played She's Not There in Time of the Season, but I don't think we played anything else. We both have long careers away from the Zombies, and we didn't think that there was going to be very much interest in the Zombies catalogue. And it was a huge surprise to us that there was an interest, and people were continually asking us to play more zombie tunes. And it took about, as I say, about 7 years, roughly speaking. We realized we were actually playing a zombie set. And at that point, we thought, let's sit down and talk to the other surviving original members who are not in this incarnation of the band and see if they mind if we use the name The Zombies. It was all done in a very gentlemanly manner.
Civil, yes.
They gave us our blessing and their blessing. And so we started using the name Zombies because we wanted people to know what to expect when they came to see us. So it was a very gradual thing for us. This incarnation came together quite by chance, in that I was playing in my solo band and had a keyboard player who kept letting me down. He was a lovely guy, but he had an Achilles heel in that if anybody asked him to go and play a gig and play some of his songs, he would be off like a rocket and he wouldn't turn up.
Oh no.
I played a gig in London, quite a prestigious gig in London, and he hadn't turned up at the last minute. And we managed to get someone, but he didn't know any of the songs you just couldn't make this up. He didn't know any of the songs we were playing. There's no chance to rehearse. I met him just before we went on stage. And when I came off, I thought, if this happens again, I'm going to have a heart attack.
Seriously.
Because you just don't know what's happening. And two of the other guys had only just joined the band. I think it was their second gig. Two of the other guys. But the bass player knew the set. And I knew the set, but no one else did. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I rang Rod up to see, Rod Argent, to see if he would help me out and finish the tour. And he said to me, well, I'll help you finish the tour, but I don't want to get back on the road full time. He's a very successful producer at the time. And he wanted to work in the studio. But he really surprised himself, and more especially surprised me, because when he got out on the road, he really enjoyed it. And so those 6 dates in 1999 grew into 24 years. So we've been together, this incarnation of the band, we've been together much longer than the original band. But as I said, when we first started, we were playing other material other than the Zombies. And we got this wonderful but very big surprise that people were really interested in the Zombies and the Zombies catalogue. I think there's always been more interest around the world in the Zombies. More, that's probably not the correct way to put this, than in the UK. For some reason, the UK has always been not quite so interested in the Zombies as other countries around the world. It's changing, actually. We did a tour in the UK in May, for the whole of the month, and it was by far the most successful tour we've ever done. Most of the shows were sold out, and so it's really encouraging. Obviously, we're an emerging rock band in the UK, having started
Fantastic.
in 1964.
Right.
We're emerging rather slowly.
One of these days, you're going to catch.
It's going to happen.
And I mean, it is quite interesting, but the last tour was the most successful tour we've ever had, and we're already being booked up for next year, and so fantastic. Perhaps the UK's catching on.
Yes, it's so funny how that happens, how you can be a sort of a hide under the radar in your own home, and then you leave, come to the States, and you just be swarmed ever since the 60s, I think. It's just...
Yeah, I always thought that if the Zombies were going to become more popular in the UK, it would always come via the States. And I just thought we're getting a higher profile in America all the time. And I think that will seep back to the UK, and it has done.
Just took them a bit.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
and you
really.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. That was.
I don't know.
Sorry, I get excited. I start
going
talking.
to say, but I mean, the whole thing has been a wonderful surprise to us. None of us were expecting what's happened to the Zombies to happen. We've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
One of my favorite inductions.
Was it?
Oh, I loved it. I just loved everything about it. I love Susanna. I loved you guys. It was just fantastic.
Her speech was just mesmerizing.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. That's not easy to do. There were 17,000 people there. And she just gave such a wonderful speech. I couldn't believe it. She is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, it was so real and sincere and from the heart, and everything she said, you could just tell she meant.
Yeah, I know.
It's fantastic.
I was really moved by it. I really was. And it was a great evening. We all had our families with us, and we had the good and the great of the music business all around us. And then we just we slipped away at towards the end of the thing, the evening, and got up there and played to all these people.
Yes.
In some ways, honestly, I just enjoyed it. It was a really enjoyable, fun night. But sometimes when you're sitting down having a meal with people and then you have to get up and entertain them, it can sometimes make it more challenging. I prefer to be backstage and just come out
Makes sense.
and meet the audience as an audience, me artist, me performer, you audience. But when you're eating with them, they become people, and it can sometimes be more challenging. But that night was just really special. It was very, very well organized, and they made it fun and easy for everyone.
So good.
One of the hardest things, we got up and did backing vocals on All the Young Dudes. And it's the kind of song, everyone sort of knows that song. But I can't say I really know it.
Sure.
And so I had to get up there and really bluff. I was only singing choruses, but I, if you ever watch that, you'll see that I'm about 5 feet away from the mic because I was really worried I was going to go astray and mess things up. Anyway,
that would be me.
Yes. It was a magical evening, and I would always say to anyone, if you're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, do really try and make it to the ceremony, because you'll never forget it. And some people, they have views on it and they think, no, I'm not going to go, and I think they'll regret it, or let's say they'll really appreciate it if they go. Just my humble opinion.
Yeah, and especially the way they have, like you were saying, other artists inducting you, and everyone is speaking from the heart, and truly, the way music touches somebody, you can never, I don't think, imagine, I'm assuming, not to put words in your mouth, but you're making these records, 1967, and the band is in disarray, and it just goes out, and it has this impact on people across the generations that, you can never enforce that to happen. That's just something that happens naturally. And
the whole thing with the Zombies' last album, Odyssey and Oracle, it came out and literally nothing happened.
Right.
And the band had finished, and I think all of us felt, well, that was it. Even at the beginning, when we had our first hit record, and I think most people in the music business thought you might have a 3 or 4 year career, a wonderful adventure, traveling the world with your mates, playing the music you love. And then after your 3 or 4 year adventure, you go back to the real world and you probably get an ordinary job, and that's what was at the back of my mind. But anyway, in 67, Odyssey and Oracle came out. There's no interest anywhere. But out of the blue, Time of the Season went on to be a hit in the States, not in the UK. It was a hit all around the world, but not in the UK. But even then, Odyssey and Oracle, I think it went into the Billboard charts for 1 week at 98 and then disappeared. And then it's just been word of mouth. Various people, Tom Petty in the States was a huge advocate for Odyssey and Oracle. Later, people like Dave Grohl and Susanna Hoff have really helped. And in the UK, Paul Weller has, he talks about it all the time as his favorite all-time album. But when it came out, absolutely nothing. And I thought that was it. And if you'd have told me in 1967 that I'd be sitting here now talking to you about the Zombies, I would have thought you were mad. Absolutely. It's strange. So one of the really good things about the music business is you never know what's going to happen. And I always smile when record executives or managers say, we're going to do this, and then this will happen, and then somewhere along the line, I presume there's a hit record involved in this speech, and I'll stay quiet, but I know that's not how it works. No one knows.
It's the best and the worst of it, because you can't predict. It's exciting, but
can't.
terrifying at the same
Oh,
time.
the whole thing's terrifying. I was just saying to my wife the other day, we've just played 3 quite big festivals in the UK, and here I am sitting in our nice house in Surrey and southwest London, just outside southwest London. I'm sitting, it's very, very quiet. I'm looking at the rhododendrons. We've got a canal at the bottom of my garden, and sometimes the boats drift by. And I said to her, I can't believe that we played festivals last week. We got up in front of thousands of people and played. That's another person that does that. It really intrigues me. But it's what we do, so we do it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating that, again, that idea, you're just putting this stuff out there into the ether, and and then at the end of the day, there's almost, do you feel like there's a separation between the music and the band and you as a person when you are sitting there, eating breakfast and looking out at the
it
at the
does
scenery?
feel like it.
Yeah.
It does feel like it. I think that we always try to clear the dressing room about an hour before the show, and I think you put on your professional aura in that hour. You have to become, to some extent, you have to become someone else, and it becomes automatic. It's automatic pilot, really. And of course it really helps that I'm surrounded by wonderful musicians who also are very good professionals, and it just all falls into place. It just intrigues me sometimes when we're away from the stage, and it seems it's not just me. I mean, I know loads of people like this who they become different people. I think it's fascinating, but I wouldn't change a thing, really. It has been a wonderful adventure, and I certainly didn't see this resurgence of interest in the zombies coming. I really didn't see it, but I'm eternally grateful that it's happened.
But one of the things I mean, there's so many things, but one of the things I've recently fallen in love with about you is your interactions with your fans through social media and your Ask Me Anything. And one of my favorite questions to ask on the show is, what are you listening to now, to some of our heroes in the music business? And your playlist was right there for me. And it's just amazing, your interactions. I love it.
Well, I mean, obviously fans are incredibly important, and we do have a core fan base who follow us all over the States. Yeah. They come to Europe as well, and really they become friends, because they always get front row seats.
I love
and
it.
You know them. I'll talk to them from the stage. I'll talk to them. Not in the middle of a song, but
of course.
And I treasure their friendship, and if we can build a stronger bond with them, of course I'll do that.
That's so good.
In my favorite songs, I made out a list of songs that I listened on the road, and we couldn't get the Joni Mitchell. I put in Carrie by Joni Mitchell, but I listened to that whole album, the Blue album, all the time on the road. Beautiful. But I was thinking about songs that are good to wake up to, and Carrie is a good one, and also Little Italy by Stephen Bishop. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten Stephen Bishop, but if you listen to that album, Careless, it's perfect. It's so gorgeous, And another song, unfortunately, I don't listen to anymore. I used to love the Beatles back in the USSR. I just thought that was so clever, and it always made me laugh. But with the situation in the world today, it
doesn't feel good right now.
No, it doesn't feel good. But I was glad to put that list together. And I tend to listen to the same songs over and over as well, because they become friends as well as
I agree
the Harden
wholeheartedly.
fan. These songs are friends,
Yes.
And I listen to them. I never tire of them.
That's how I feel too.
And it's interesting because I feel like for me, This Will Be Our Year fits so perfectly with so much of life in general. And when you're saying like good songs to wake up to, good songs to go to bed to, I think that ticks both boxes, which is its own thing. And it's so interesting too to see artists who continually have that interest in music and who keep going back to things, and you can get that same enjoyment from other people that, you know, audiences are getting from your work. And then hear that you guys are just adding to that and growing and continually trying things out. And like we said before, not following a cut and paste, we're going to make the same record 10 times over.
Absolutely not. It's always been most important for us to think about the future. And that's why we didn't, in 1999, we didn't reform the Zombies. Thought never crossed our minds. We didn't use the name the Zombies. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself here, but and we didn't play very many zombie tunes. And it's true now, you know, we're always thinking about what's next. And you haven't done this, but one of the things that, in a way, I sort of dread in too strong a word maybe, but I dread in interviews when people say, after about a minute, they say, "Let me take you back to the 60s."
Oh God, no.
Like, oh no.
Here we
No,
go.
no.
Let's have a quick chat about the 60s. But you know, we've been doing this for over 60 years, and there's lots of other things to talk about as well.
Yes.
But it just, I mean, I laugh at it. I make it sound heavier than it is. To me, it's funny, really. And people say that, "Let me take you back to the 60s." No.
Why? Don't make me do it.
Yeah.
Would you think it's the fact that you both had successful solo careers post Zombies that gives you that ability to sort of say, we have faith in our own music writing ability and performing ability outside of the kind of, I don't want to say shackles of the Zombies name, but you guys know you can do this without that. Well,
we can, and we do try to introduce some of that into the set. I mean, the set's changing all the time. There have been times when we've used quite a few of my solo things in there. We're not at the moment, and we've also used more of Rod's band Argent. We only have one Argent tune, I think, in the set at the moment. But we're really fortunate that we've got this huge repertoire that we can choose songs from. But even more than me, Rod always wants to concentrate on the future, and he's always pushing to do new songs rather than looking back. So there are times when I think I would probably quite like to pick a couple of classic songs from the past that we haven't done or we haven't done for a while. But more than me, Rod's always thinking about the future, and it's good because that's where you get your energy from, writing, recording and performing new songs. The minute you sit back and relax and just play from your back catalogue, I think something, I'm not saying it's over, but something changes, you know, it all just becomes too comfortable. When we're playing new songs, I tell you a secret, being in sort of the autumn of my career, if I might say, when we do new songs, it's sometimes quite hard for me to really know the lyrics. You know, within the heat of battle, everything changes. You think you know a song. And I've certainly noticed that. So it does take me out of my comfort zone when we're doing these new songs, because, you know, we actually touch on a lot of new songs. And I've also got to remember a lot of old songs. When I think of how many songs I probably know, it's I think my brain is probably fairly full. And this is the problem. So it's been interesting doing 3 or 4 new songs, and I've occasionally stumbled. But luckily, because they're new songs, no one knows.
Right.
That's key.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
You're just changing the lyrics as you go. It's perfect.
I know. All I ever say is sing loud and look confident.
Yes.
And you can get away with a lot.
It's a rule of life right there.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I love it.
And it's such like, again, like I think you said that when you sit back and relax, you're perhaps, you know, taking the easy way out. But I think it's that word relax. If you are on edge, whether or not, you know, never mind the keyboardist showing up, but just like, am I going to be able to deliver for the rest of the band in the way that we all feel like we can play and should be playing? That's got to keep you on your toes every night, being like, all right, we got to do this, you know, and not just.
In some ways, you know, I think like with sportsmen, there's a process that this is what works for me anyway, so that if I often talk about this, being on the road in your later years, you have to look after yourself. This is how you know you're going to be able to sing. But don't talk all day like I'm doing today.
Right.
Don't talk all day. Get plenty of sleep. Drink lots of water. Very, very important to stay hydrated. Just generally look after yourself. And then I have a series of vocal exercises that I do before sound check. So it's about 35 minutes, I think, before sound check. And then I do them again before the show. So I will have sung exercises for an hour before the show starts. Now, if I've got my sleep, eaten sensibly, done my vocal exercises, the show will be good. It will be fine. We've rehearsed. I've got great musicians around me. And so it becomes sort of like being on automatic pilot. The only thing that's out of your control is if there's equipment failure or something like that. But we're usually pretty good at busking around that. Usually someone will come forward, and our guitarist Tom Toomey is a very good guitarist. He can play instrumentals. I can sing with no one. I'll sing by myself if something goes wrong. So we can usually cope if that happens.
How much of a role does the audience play in your performance as far as just what they're giving back to you?
Well, I think it can be huge. I particularly notice it when we walk on stage, when you first walk on, and if you get a wonderful reaction, it really lifts you, and you really do become someone else. But it's a sort of a mark of how professional you are, that if you walk on and you don't get that huge reaction, then you still have to give everything you've got. Maybe you have to work harder. If the audience is a bit quiet to start with, you've got to get them. And I have to say, we usually do. And we'll compare notes afterwards. We'll say, I think we got them after about the fifth song. I reckon we got them. Yeah. And it's interesting. But just because you walk on and it's quiet, you can't then give a lesser performance. I think you have to give a more accomplished performance to a quieter audience. But walking on stage, if it's a big audience and they give you a roar of approval when you walk on, there's nothing else like it. It's wonderful.
The Zombies may have had to wrap up their US tour a couple dates early, but they are scheduled to play the UK this month. For more information and to pick up their records and the new one, it's actually really good. Check out their website, which is thezombiesmusic.com, and you can find them on Facebook, where they're at facebook.com/thezombiesmusic.
Rock and Roll Grad School is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, because your impassioned review is just as honest as us standing backstage waiting to come back on for the encore. For more information, you can check out our website, rockandrollgradschool.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hegquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the professional office building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Good night, drive safe. May all your favorite bands stay together.
Took a long time to come, and I